Start. Okay, here it
Okay,
is.
okay.
All right.
I need to
Welcome,
change.
viewers, to the first episode of Leftist Weekly. This is going to be a new podcast where every week we talk about the news from a leftist perspective. I guess I can introduce everyone. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Just tell everyone your name. And I guess we could start with, uh, let's start with Jake.
All right. My name is Jake. I'm an anarchist. I run a YouTube channel called Red and Black Revolutionary. Plug. And yeah, that's me.
Okay. Then I guess William can go.
I'm in the LC, and I didn't realize we were doing a podcast.
It's actually a Google Hangout.
What?
It's a Google
Okay, now
Hangout.
Patrick.
I'm Patrick Janis, and I don't have any website.
And now this is Chris, and he is the one with the leftist icon.
Yep, I'm the host of this Hangout, but I'm not actually.
You're not the fucking
moderator.
host.
So, I'm Chris. I'm like a borderline Maoist, third worldist. I
Gross.
just call myself a Maoist.
Gross.
He admits
And
it.
You.
basically, I wrote an article once for Shitty Marxist.
Tell us why you hate first world workers.
Fuck up. I wrote a shitty article for a shitty Marxist website that we're going to update. I was in Workers Youth United in the past, which is terrible, so I'm not from Jake.
You were talking way too much. All right. Lastly, Hayes.
That's what happens when you
Yeah,
have
fucking Jake
Maoists.
was interrupting me. So.
So my name is Hayes Hartman, and I don't have a website or anything like that, and I am a bourgeois socialist.
Yes. Okay.
Viva.
So we're going to be talking about different topics, at least 8 different topics from the last few weeks that are still relevant till today. And obviously, I guess the biggest news topic going around right now is the Chapel Hill shooting in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where an atheist man, or a new atheist man, by the name of Stephen Hicks shot and killed 3 Muslim students that went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Was he?
So I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things we could talk about from this thing. Firstly, I think we should talk about the case itself. Then we could talk about new atheism and its problematic ideology, its geopolitical ideology as far as theism goes and as far as warmongering goes. And then we could talk about the way the media has handled this case.
Yeah.
So, who would like to go first? Anyone.
Not me.
Well, I'll just start off by saying that I consider the shooting tragic. I think everyone does. Even the most blatant new atheists will kind of, I think, qualify any statement they make with that observation. Personally, I think just one of the biggest things that I've seen is just how quickly people have latched on to the notion that this is parking district.
Oh my god.
And that's utterly ridiculous. And even if there was a parking element to it, the fact that maybe it seemed like this guy did have an ongoing problem with his neighbors or his victims, ultimately it's clear that his anti-religious sentiment played a role in either escalating the conflict or prompting him to actually shoot someone. It's kind of like I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, right? And he was saying, and he told me, he was like, no, it's a parking dispute. Let's withhold judgment. That's like saying, oh, we should withhold judgment regarding the motives of a Klansman that stabbed a black guy for over a spot in line. It's clear that his ideology, his personal beliefs, had to have played a role in this. I think it's imbecilic to think otherwise.
Yeah,
and I think that goes into the way how the media has portrayed this case in the first place. The fact that the media didn't talk about it for up to 10 hours, and then when it finally did, it started to play this whole this storyline of the parking space. If you look at the case itself, who goes on a shooting spree where you shoot 3 people in the head, execution style, over a parking space? Like, if this was going to devolve into a violent confrontation, wouldn't it have happened between the driver of that car and then the neighbor, not him shooting all 3 of them in the head? It really doesn't make any sense. It seems like there's something else involved in this case.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear what that is.
It was pretty obvious. My initial thought was, there's no way in hell a parking spot is that good.
Also, I mean, like, sorry for the noise before, but what I think should be said is the fact that like they're like you can't separate this and then new atheist attitudes. Like you can't separate those two things because I mean it's evident. Like so, if you ask like new atheist opinions about Islam, you kind of watch Christopher Hitchens stuff. You just get the general consensus of the new atheists on Islam. They're not very tolerant. I mean, the thing is, like, they view anybody who identifies is with Islam and similar religions as some kind of evil person that wants to decapitate the heads of infidels and shit. Like, they're not worldly enough to know that not everybody who identifies as Muslim is some kind of evil person. And so I think that definitely played a factor. Like I could definitely see a lot of these people, doing something like that if they, had some kind of mental illness or something. So like I think this is just a case of that guy taking it to the extreme and then saying, what does it matter if I kill a Muslim person? They're all assholes anyway. They're all dumb. They're all perpetuating religious hegemony. They're all, wanting to decapitate every American. So. You can't separate the attitude. I mean, the new atheists can, bark on about how it's a completely different thing all they want, but it's definitely connected.
Yeah, also...
and I mean, to go off of what you said... Yo, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, you guys were talking about how, like, there's no way in fuck it could have been, like, not a hate crime if he execution-style headshotted 3 people over a parking space. I thought it was also coincidental, the fact that he had actually like showed off his gun on Facebook like a couple days to a week before the shooting happened. So it's just kind of weird that he got the gun right before this entire thing happened, and then he goes off and executes 3 people for supposedly stealing the parking spot from him. So yeah, I think it can really easily be said it was a hate crime.
Yeah, and like another thing, another post that he made a couple of days before this incident happened. To try to piggyback off of what Jake said earlier, he was going off of this new atheist belief that the only way to solve the problem in the Middle East is by introducing atheism. Like that's literally one of the posts that he had. He said you don't solve it with I forget what the things that he was saying, like the exact points. He said you don't solve it with democracy or some shit like that. You don't solve it with military intervention. The only way you solve it is with atheism. Which obviously, if you want atheism to be widespread in that area, you're obviously going to have to employ some type of military intervention.
That's not even like religion is not even the core of the problem. The core of the problem is imperialist intervention.
And
that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not like the evil Muslim people. Islam. Oh my God! It's imperialist intervention. It was never like that before. That happened.
Well, it was like that. It's just that imperialism has exacerbated the problem.
Well, no. Well,
religion is what people cling to when they're suffering, when there's poverty, when the world around you is bad. Religion is what people cling to.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that Marx?
I mean, it wasn't like
Marx actually.
Yeah, and it wasn't
came as an opiate of the masses. Yeah. Like that's what its purpose in society was. So if you're gonna attack that problem, you need to even the problem of Islam itself. You need to first start with the social organization, not just your personal beliefs about religion.
I would also say a huge source of problems in the Middle East, actually at more of a domestic level. So if you look at regional level, foreign intervention is a huge problem. But let's look at a nation like Egypt. That has not experienced direct foreign intervention in terms of military intervention for quite some time. A big problem there is that you have a very well-educated young kind of male cohort, young males that are educated, but they can't find jobs. There's a certain level of economic systemic failures, which I think are which I would argue are also products of kind of global capitalism. But I would say that it's not just the military intervention aspect of it at a regional level. There's also kind of deeper societal problems if you look at from country to country.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, go off of what Chris said earlier, how it's always been like that, or it was like that prior to Western intervention. That isn't necessarily true. I mean, at one point, the Muslim world was the leading. Yeah, I know, but
Like,
the idea that it was always this backwards.
No, I never said
It's just not true.
I was talking. I was talking about. I
No,
mentioned.
he's talking to me. But yeah, like the Caliphate and the Ottoman Empire were like the most advanced like civilizations in the world
Yeah.
in this time period. So yeah, obviously for a while those areas were progressive. I was just saying that it's not true that imperialism is like the only problem that has played a role in the Middle East and why.
No, it's not the only problem, but it's the core of the problem, which is what I.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay, I agree.
And if you look at a lot of the fighters that are going to fight for the Islamic State, a lot of them are coming from Europe and Western developed countries, and I think that is, I think there's a certain level of alienation a lot of immigrant families and immigrant people, even second generation people, get when they're thrust into a capitalist society like that. That generates a certain level of kind of identity crisis. So they look to religion.
I mean, yeah, it's good that you brought that up actually, because that like you know, the kind of racist parties within the UK, such as UKIP and stuff, their hate is actually funneling that. So you know, they're actually making that worse. They're actually getting people to go and join these fights with the hate that they're perpetuating. You know, so that's you know, it's like they're not even, you know, they're aiming to solve the quote unquote Muslim problem, but they're making it worse.
I would like to add, with bringing up, you brought up ISIS, which came to mind. What comes to mind is like their ideology and their structure.
Let's not talk too much about ISIS right now. Let's not talk too much about ISIS right now, because that is a later topic that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
All right. So, does anyone have anything else to talk about on the Chapel Hill shooting?
Not really.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, just want to give our condolences to the family who've lost their loved ones. I mean, these people were like really great people. When you look at their work, their social work, they were planning to go on Turkey to help out victims of the war in Syria. They were just good people. So, I mean, it's pretty devastating.
Yeah.
That they had to lose those loved ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about, this is something that's really big in the leftist community right now, is this rape case up in Portland, Oregon, where this man, Hart Noker, who was a pretty popular leftist in the community, an anti-capitalist, a feminist, has been accused of raping up to 10 women. I mean, this is pretty big. This is a problem that's been going on in the left for a long time. You have these people who basically show themselves to be something that they really aren't, and they're using this political basis as a way to take advantage of people.
Well, yeah,
so, I mean,
sexual harassment.
What do you guys want to say about this?
Sexual harassment, that's been actually a huge problem in the left community for a while. You know, it's not just been with him. There's been many other cases. There was this one guy. He was in a. If any of you know, what's the Russian guy's name that interviews people? I like Occupy Wall Street protests. Yeah, Vladimir Jov. One of the guys in the video, he was like a communist or whatever. He was part of the left community, a big part of it, you know, largely, and he had some sexual harassment stuff, as well. Like, so it's been a problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that. I mean, obviously, it's terrible that a lot of people are raped in the leftist community, and if anyone's raped, that's a terrible thing, and I express my condolences to those people, but it's just really, like, it's just especially a big problem in the leftist community, because these types of leaders and activists are accountable to people who have very progressive views on women's rights, people who are feminists, etc., and then when you know, they sexually harass someone or rape someone, they can't just come out and say they did it, because it would sour their reputation even more than it normally would, because they're accountable to, you know, feminists and women's rights activists. So it just really is like it's a really big thing you have to hide in the leftist community, and just makes it worse, because if you rape someone, you should come out with the truth.
Well, I mean, even when organizations have known that they had rapists inside their midst that have raped other comrades inside those organizations, those organizations have turned around and then defended those people.
Socialist Workers
have
Party.
basically attacked. Not only the Socialist Workers Party, but the Freedom, the FRSO.
Yeah, them too.
That's actually the organization that the guy in that Vladimir Jaff video was a member of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of rampant.
Yeah, with the Socialist Workers' Party, there was actually a girl that got raped, and she went to the higher ups in the organization. She said she got raped, and they actually turned around and started making.
This is the Socialist Workers' Party in England, by the way, not the one in America.
Yeah. And basically, but isn't that like a satellite of them?
No, they're different.
Okay. Well, but anyway, basically the higher ups in the organization, rather than doing anything about it, they insulted her. They were making rape insults at her.
Yeah.
For the situation. So.
Yeah.
As an
When you have like tight, close-knit cults like this that center around activism, you usually get this kind of bullshit going on, and they just accept it because what are they gonna do? Are they gonna go to the police and look like snitches and that sort of thing? I mean,
yeah,
that's the big
yeah, but I mean, in the case in Portland, these were decentralized anarchists, and this still occurred. So I mean, this isn't just a problem with these heavily centralized Stalinist organizations. I mean, this is occurring all throughout the left, and it's something that we need to confront directly.
It's a symptom of activist culture.
I would actually go.
Well, I mean, that's delving into different politics, and we don't really want to do that. So.
I would just say that this is actually something that a lot of organizations have to face, especially ones that are structured. That you have, it's a multi-layered structure. This is completely opposite end of the spectrum from you guys, but I was in a fraternity in my undergraduate years, and we didn't have any of these problems, but a lot of the other houses did. And I think it's just a natural human thing to do is when someone in your organization, especially someone you revere or respect, commits some sort of crime like this, especially a sexual crime, it is just natural and kind of unavoidable for people to start covering up. And I think that there's no kind of just general cure for this sort of thing. You have to go to organizational level. It's how these sorts of things are going to pan out and how they should be addressed is entirely dependent on the nature of the organization you're looking at. So in your case, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a difference between a more organized Stalinist organization and a more decentralized network of anarchists.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to say on this topic?
Not that I can think of.
Jake, you want to say anything, or William?
I mean, I could go on
all right, go ahead, Jake.
a rant about. I could go on kind of a long rant about, authoritarian social norms that lead to these things, but I don't know if I want to get into that right now, especially on this podcast. So.
All right, so the next topic we're going to talk about is this continued war on ISIS, the Islamic Iraq and Syria. Recent news is the fact that Barack Obama wants to authorize boots on the ground in Iraq and Syria. Oh, okay, let me just finish intro. But another thing we could talk about is the death of this American hostage, Kayla Mueller, because there's something that's really interesting that happened recently. So basically, this all started with a couple of weeks ago with this very violent killing of this Jordanian pilot, Muad al-Qasasbih, by ISIS. And this was followed up by a series of airstrikes by Jordan, which ISIS claims killed this woman, Kayla Mueller, who was an American hostage. Since then, American conservatives have been attacking this woman, Kayla Mueller, who has been killed by ISIS because she was an anti-Israel protester, and she helped, rebuild houses for Palestinian refugees. So that's pretty funny, and I think we should talk about that as well. But I think the first thing we should talk about is the proposed military intervention, the boots on the ground against ISIS in Syria and Iraq. So who wants to go first?
I guess I can just say something. I just wanted to point out how often this happens with, like American imperialism and stuff like that, because the general problem that, imperialism in the United States and, Saudi Arabia and other countries face when they're trying to fund their puppet organizations in the Middle East is that they can never find an organization that truly will be aligned to them. So, like, you're getting rejected. So ISIS was actually a split off from the Free Syrian Army originally, which the United States funded. the Free Syrian Army includes some moderates, but it actually mostly...
Yeah, Chris, all right, that actually isn't necessarily true. I mean, I guess you could say that ISIS does have a few branches off from the FSA, but ISIS is mainly a continuation of the Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So, you know, that isn't necessarily a true narrative.
The FSA has some loose ties to ISIS.
Yeah.
I don't think that, you know, you can call them a satellite or whatever. I don't know if you were
No,
saying
I'm not
that,
calling them a satellite. I said they had connections and like a split off.
Right, yeah, they have a loose connection, yeah.
Yeah, and the point is the United States actually used to assist them. And this is the same thing that happened with the Taliban when we funded the Taliban against the Soviets in the 1980s. What happened was that once they took control of the country, they turned their guns against us. It's exactly what happened with ISIS. So it's like a problem that's just going to keep happening because the United States wants their puppets in the Middle East and Central Asia.
Well, like, I think an important thing to remember about, like, you know, Obama saying he wants boots on the ground now. Like, the thing is, ISIS, you know, while it may have been started, you know, while it may not have been, you know, intended to be a tool of U.S. interest, it definitely is, and that's been always the plan, is to use them for U.S. imperial interests. But now the thing is, and they've done this with many other groups before, and forces, is that, you know, they're using them for their advantage, but then, you know, when it's in their interest, they're going to stop them. So, you know, they've been building up, you know, kind of public support against ISIS for a while, and so now they're going to use that to stop on them. And it's also convenient because they also have just been starting to get other avenues for backing than U.S. backing. So I thought that was interesting.
And at the same time, it makes the United States look humanitarian, even though they've been supporting these fucking terrorists the entire time. So it's very convenient. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that putting ground troops to, you know, what is the plan? He's going to send in troops for 6 months, right, to fight ISIS? That's what Obama said.
Yeah,
right?
no, he said the plan is 3 years.
3 years, okay. Even if it's 3 years, it's actually a pretty terrible plan because what ISIS is just going to do is that they're going to stop expanding, they're going to bunker up, and they're just going to like go on defense. And then we have our 3 years to get out. Obama's either he probably wouldn't have accomplished anything, or we're just going to have to stay in Iraq and Syria for longer.
Well, and there was a leader, like there was the main guy in the Taliban that was interviewed by Vice, and he was saying, like, you know, as long as the Americans stay here, it's going to get fucking worse, like, blatantly. Like, and that's the truth. I mean, they're fighting because the Americans are there. You know, that's the main thing. The main thing is getting, you know, the occupants out of their country.
That was a narrative of Osama bin Laden for, you know, attacking us on 9/11.
Right. Was
that they were still, you know, military intervention in Saudi Arabia. There were still military bases in Saudi Arabia.
Well, we were there for 10 years before, you know, 9/11. So.
But ISIS isn't just. It's actually not really anti-American. Like, well, obviously it's anti-American.
I'm not saying that its only purpose is anti-American.
No, but I don't really think that's their main purpose either.
I didn't say it was their. I wasn't trying to say at least that it was their main thing. I'm just saying that it's a huge part of why they're doing what they're doing. You know, I mean that's a huge part of their thing. I mean, obviously they have.
The other main part though is destroying the
All right, guys. Let somebody else talk. All right, guys. Let somebody else talk.
I would also say that
I was going to talk about this because I want to get this in. Sorry.
He's talking first.
Okay, sorry. I'll be brief. I think a huge source of ISIS's support in the region has to do with the fact that it claims, at least, to be offering a form of consistent governance. You know, actual political institutions that will provide basic services to them. That's been one of the biggest failures of the Iraqi regime. That the Americans put in place there was that it was corrupt, inefficient, and in certain parts of the country even non-existent. So ISIS has kind of filled in that gap. So I think that there's definitely the ideological component and the desire to fight American intervention. But in terms of local support, a lot of it comes down to whether or not these people can provide basic services in a way that's better than, let's say, the Iraqi government can. So, frankly, and from that standpoint, Obama's strategy is also, I think, shit, because what they should be doing is really targeting ISIS's ability to provide those services. That's barbaric, but I think it would actually, in the long run, be superior to simply sending in a bunch of troops that will be there for God knows how long.
Well, I mean, if I could quickly respond to that, I think that ISIS has been doing a really awful job at providing those amenities in Mosul, as it be. So, I mean, if they continue to be very shitty in their ability to act as a state, then I think the people themselves might turn up against them. There was a video that came out yesterday of a Syrian woman, a Syrian woman, basically confronting ISIS soldiers, saying that you guys suck.
That's true.
Yeah,
and I,
awesome.
yeah, the
That's true.
locals.
And I
the
think it's
locals,
a short-term thing. I think the reason they have support
There,
is that there was the short-term
You got a lot of
prospect.
talking going on at the same time, so.
Yeah, I think we should let William talk because he hasn't had a chance at all. So.
yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. First thing I was gonna say is it came to mind is we were talking about new atheism and blaming religion as the root of the problem, and I've seen a lot of them try to go on about religious doctrine. As far as like ISIS and being spot on with Islam and whatnot, I just with my decent knowledge of Islam, they're bastardizing the hell out of shit.
Oh yeah,
And,
definitely.
and doing things which are like explicitly forbidden.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
As
mean,
far
a
as
lot
like
of the
war crimes and
Yeah,
shit.
I mean,
a lot of the locals are
yeah, I'm the son of, I'm the son of, yeah, I'm the son of an imam, so I know a little bit about Islam, and you know, ISIS, they have threatened to destroy the Kaaba, which is the holiest site in all of Islam. When Muslims pray, we have to when Muslims pray, they have to face the Kaaba, no matter where they're at in the world. They have to face the Kaaba. So destroying the Kaaba, that's gonna piss off every fucking Muslim in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
And not to
like,
mention
the
that, but the fact that they
the
burned this pilot alive, you know,
yeah,
that's
like,
against Islamic law to burn somebody alive.
The thing,
Also-
like the thing about that is that the
Go ahead,
locals
William.
also, like the locals.
Oh,
fucking
one
hate
more
their
thing.
guts,
I was
and,
supposed to get this in.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
This was a minor one. I showed this and we laughed. Is they're issuing the death penalty for like tobacco smoking, which it wasn't, of course, forbidden by Islamic law. They just made up some bullshit reason that it was a suicide attempt type thing. But my thing is, like, as far as gaining widespread support, that's one thing I've never seen a country successfully ban. That I can think of, and it's I don't know.
Yeah,
Like a terrible policy as far as like widespread support. No one supports a tobacco prohibition.
yeah, I mean, like,
and them giving the reason of suicide, I mean, they support suicide bombing. So.
well, the interesting thing about suicide bombings is that when they tell the children, like, they get like the thing that they're doing now is that they're getting teenagers and children to do it because they're they're more strategic avenues for suicide bombing. And so when they and these children they don't know a lot about Islamic thought and all that. So what they are told is basically they aren't told anything about Islamic theology. They aren't told any of that. They're told actually things that are blatantly against Islamic law. And they're just basically told do this suicide bombing and then you'll go to paradise, which is not Islam at all. It's a bastardization completely. It's completely against like all Islamic principles. Even ask any of the locals. You fucking they'll tell you straight up those guys are fucking Islam posers essentially. So like and the reason that they get these kids to do it is because they blatantly bastardize Islam and they don't tell them the truth. And so these kids not having the knowledge to defend themselves, to do intellectual self-defense, they end up going and doing these things. It's actually a real tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the major one of the major Islamic laws is do not kill yourself. Like that's one of the major Islamic laws.
Do not kill others. Do not kill others too. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah, that is it. That is as well. But one of the major things, one thing that is said in the Quran and the Hadith is these people they go around saying that other people aren't Muslim, right? You're not supposed to do that without any proof. Like that takes you
right.
That literally takes you out of Islam themselves. So they themselves are like taking themselves out of Islam by saying that that all other people aren't Muslims, and that's the way they propagate their violence.
Also, things which came to mind from that is also there's like explicit passages about like if there's like a town and you know there's like one good person, like don't raise the town and burn it, and that's pretty much what they're doing.
Yeah, and you're also not supposed to
and-
force convert. Like, you're not supposed to force convert anyone.
Yeah. You're supposed to, like, Islam is explicit about being tolerant, especially to Christians and Jews, and they're not.
Yeah, I mean, Islam considers the only other two like legitimate religions to be Judaism and Christianity. Like, you can only marry a Jew or a Christian. You can only eat from a Jew or a Christian if they're not a Muslim. So, you know, the idea that you can force convert people, that also is very un-Islamic. I mean, in fact, it says every time they give a sermon for the Friday prayer, they say right before that that only God can guide somebody to the true path of Islam. Like, you can't force somebody to do that. That's what you say before every fucking Friday. So I mean.
Yeah, right.
Also, I want to add that, like, the tobacco laws are probably, like, they could be seen as kind of a good thing in a way, because, like you guys were saying before, they could build, like, a lot of, like, necessary opposition to ISIS, which is obviously a brutal fucking organization that shouldn't stay in Syria and Iraq. And
well, I'm also pretty sure that that a lot of people in that area like to, you know, engage in things with tobacco. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm trying to make too. Because a similar thing happened with the Taliban, right? Like, one of the major downfalls that the Taliban had is, they gained support from a lot of the people in Afghanistan at first. One of the major things they did, which is similar and comparable to what ISIS is doing, is that the Taliban pretty much forcibly stopped all heroin manufacturing, which comes from opium, poppy seeds, and stuff that's grown in Afghanistan. And that's actually one of the main livelihoods in Afghanistan. That's how people survive. Opium. Did they have opium farms? They sell opium. And this built a lot of opposition with the Taliban. And I'm pretty sure, like you said, in Syria and Iraq, people have a lot of the same type of things with growing tobacco. That's the only way they can sustain themselves. So if they're doing this, this could build a lot of opposition to ISIS, which is a good thing.
I'm not going to equate tobacco and opium.
No, it's similar though, because I'm not saying they're similar as in wrong. I'm saying that what they're doing is similar in the way that they created opposition.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Okay.
with the opium thing, just one quick thing on that. With the opium thing,
Yeah.
the large reason that didn't work is because people were growing opium for their living. Like, if you told them to stop fucking growing opium,
Yes, and
stop fucking growing opium, they're not gonna fucking do it because they need to fucking do it to feed their families.
And it's exactly the same thing with tobacco. You can't fucking stop it if it's the only way that people actually sustain themselves. They're gonna fucking keep doing it. And if they can't keep doing it, if you keep them from doing it, then there's gonna be rebellion.
Right.
Okay, alright, so I know this is a very interesting topic. I know there's a lot to say about ISIS, but we gotta move on.
Yeah.
So if anyone has anything else they want to say about it, then, like, let it be said right now.
Nope.
Okay, so the next topic, I guess this can also be said is a pretty hot topic amongst the left, is the winning of the election in Greece by the radical coalition, or the coalition of the radical left, which is this big tent
Can we not
group
call
of
them that?
several different.
Well, that's their name, but
Well, I mean, that's their name.
they do have radical leftist parties in it too. You can't deny
Well,
that.
no, but SYRIZA, like, can we like
Okay,
put
it's a
that-
social
Sure.
democratic. It's a social democratic party, but it's too.
Not a party.
Well, it aligns with fascists, so.
No, it is a party now. It liquidated itself into a party. So,
Okay,
yeah.
well, it wasn't originally a party. It was a Big Ten organization with a bunch of parties within it.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, fine. But
they have aligned
I think the main.
Sorry.
I think the main thing we want to talk about is what can this group achieve, if anything. We don't really want to go off on a thing about their ideology. Let's just say what can they achieve, if anything.
What I've heard. Oh, can I just
go first?
talk
No,
first?
you
Yeah,
go
sorry. I actually don't know like much about it. I obviously know of the election and of Cyprus winning and like the logistics, but I don't really like know what position to take because what I've heard from a lot of communists is that.
Does anyone here understand the austerity measures?
Yes. Can I just finish talking? I've heard from a lot of leftists that like SYRIZA could open up like a playing ground, like a political field for like Leninists and other,
That's
like,
bullshit.
or left political parties to actually gain power or like gain like ground. Well, I don't know if this is true. So.
I don't think it's
I
true
mean,
for the main reason, like...
Go ahead.
So the thing about SYRIZA, right, is, number one, they're aligning with what is basically, like, it's probably not completely fascist, but it's a very borderline fascist party.
Yeah.
And so, like, number one, that's like if you're aligning with a fascist political faction, that's a major barrier to any kind of left activism at all. And then there's also the fact of when they got into, office, their plan of action was not like they were talking about, abolish the debt, get rid of the austerity. Their plan of action was, okay, we're going to rewrite the budget. Like, it was ridiculous. And then, there was also the thing of the coalition with the fascists, that's going to do major economic harm to Greece. Like, that's not going to be good economically at all. So, I mean...
The group that they're aligning themselves with is the Independent Greeks, which is not a fascist organization specifically, but they're anti-immigrant and extremely right-wing.
It's borderline fascist.
They don't. Unlike the Golden Dawn, they don't do like They're not. They're not going and killing leftists. But it's still asinine. At best, they're gonna accomplish the usual crap that social democrats accomplish, which is
that's exactly the thing. Like, I think that
they I mean, they would have aligned probably with like the KKE, but they decided to be extremely sectarian.
Well, even if they did align with the KKE, that wouldn't have done much because the KKE has like 7 representatives in the Hellenic Parliament.
Literally.
Yeah, but I mean,
they were
think
2 away.
KKE doesn't like them anyway, so.
They were 2 representatives away.
The KKE does not like them, no.
They were 2 representatives away from having a majority, and the small party they're aligning with is only like 10 seats, and they're like 149 seats. So power.
I guess you could.
I think the benefit of aligning with the KKE in this case, if anything, was the fact that the KKE has a mass support from the masses and it does some direct action. But I mean, the thing is that the coalition of the radical left, or SYRIZA, whatever the fuck you want to call them, their main goal is Euroception, right? So that's why they're aligning with this fucking far right party, because they all agree that they're anti-austerity. So I mean, that's the main goal. So can they achieve that? Can they go against the EU?
Yeah, they can go against
Something I really want to emphasize though is I think most of us can agree on this at least. I think this is the same trend that we see, like, so for instance in Europe, a long time ago when kind of Fabian socialist ideas were kind of popular. So you get in the system, you kind of try to you get your guys in there and they will give you socialism. It's the same symptom of the same disease. With the Labour Party back then, it was extremely corrupt. They called themselves socialists, but they weren't. They were just calling themselves socialists to get in on the political favors. And this is the thing, like, you're trying to achieve socialism from a framework of working within the state apparatus that is designed to manage the affairs of the bourgeois.
I have never had any. I'm not even fully. I wouldn't even say I support SYRIZA, but I don't think anyone, like any actual leftist, has had any delusions that they're going to bring about socialism.
Yeah.
The biggest thing they can do is change the system to prevent the Golden Dawn from gaining power and creating like a second major fascist movement in Europe.
Fourth Reich, yeah.
Well, I think we all agree that bourgeois parliamentarism is not going to do anything for the masses. I think we all can agree on that.
That's like the essential thing with this. The essential thing is to learn the lesson that bourgeois parliamentarism is not a good thing. And
no, but
we know that.
No one's saying that they're trying to achieve socialism.
No, I'm not saying that like you guys are advocating that. I'm just highlighting the point because I think it's an important point.
Even though like obviously bourgeois parliamentarism isn't a good thing, like we agree with that. I think like some good things possibly can come out of this if they could escape from like the European Union and could like break apart some of the fabric that makes up the European Union.
They're not going to do that, though. Like, I can tell you right now, they're not going to do that.
That would be really dumb.
That they wouldn't even be able to do that. Like seriously, they would not.
Why would that be
it
really
would
dumb?
ruin it would crash an already unstable Greek economy. It's already
Well, yes, but the point is that would also crash the more heavily developed capitalist economies in Western Europe. That might not
Well, not
necessarily.
necessarily, because Portugal. I mean, well, not Portugal. Portugal is about to crash as well. But I think Switzerland or what? It was Switzerland or fucking Belgium. Like they did not want to pay Portugal any sum of money when the first crash originally occurred, and they were like actually considering. There was actually one section of Belgium that was considering separating from the EU, so it wouldn't have to pay these fees to Portugal. So I mean, it depends. So if Greece goes on this this tangent where it wants to secede from the EU, maybe it could destroy the structure of the EU, or maybe it can further fuck over Greece. We don't know.
I don't think it's going to be able to destroy the structure of the EU, but I'm not going to get into the debate right now. So
it would definitely fuck over Greece.
Okay.
I know that seems like a kind of conservative position, but it would. It just,
No, that's not a conservative position. Like, if you said I'm trying to think of something. If you said that if the American capitalists just got out of India immediately, it's not like there's any socialist government. They just went out and they took their sweatshops and left. That would actually cause a lot. As conspiracy cause a lot of problems here.
Okay, so are we have we said all we needed to say about SYRIZA? Can we move on to the next topic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the biggest things that's happened in the Middle East besides ISIS has been the Houthi, the Shia Houthi takeover of Yemen, in the capital of Yemen, Sana'a, which happened a few weeks ago, I believe in January. I might be wrong on that date. And now they are developing a transitional government. So this is pretty big because they're in an area by Saudi Arabia, by Oman, by these heavily Sunni pro-U.S. Countries. And this is a very poor country in Yemen. And there's a lot of different factors that's going into this coup d'etat. They have opposed the Yemeni government, but there's also the existence of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, who coincidentally on January 7th, they financed the attacks on the Charlie Hebdo magazine in Paris. So you have all of these different elements in Yemen that might be bumping heads. And what do you guys think?
Was reportedly funded
what do you say?
by Saudi Arabia.
That's kind of random.
Well, no, it's not random. We're going to talk about the power struggle that's going on in Yemen. It's not random. But
yeah, but Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is not the same thing as core Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, no,
but like I was saying,
the Saudis have been funding the ones in Yemen.
Yeah, okay, all right, Chris.
Okay.
So there is this bumping of heads between these three different groups. You have the Islamists in Al-Islah and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. You have the Shia and the Houthis, who are currently the government of Yemen. And then you have the former government, the U.S.-backed government. And you have all these different things colliding with each other. What do you think the U.S. is going to do? Will they continue to support the former government, or will they possibly try to make a deal with the Houthis?
I actually don't know, because the Houthis are supported by the Iranians, which would be quite controversial if the United States were to make a deal with the Houthis. I would say that they're going to continue supporting the formal government forces.
I'm gonna leave for now. I need to work on something.
Okay.
Adios.
All right, see you.
See you.
All right, bye.
Yeah, that's just what I think. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, if somebody else wants to go, they can go now. Anyone?
Well,
okay, so I mean, I personally think that the Houthis don't really have that strong of a relationship with Iran. I mean, sure, they are also Shia, but if you look at their ideology, they have a really big ideological difference with Iran. But they do really oppose the U.S. Like, one of their main phrases is "death to the U.S." I don't know. I mean, I think that the U.S. can possibly, yeah, if the former Yemeni government, which was not very strong in its resistance against the Houthis, if they're really out of it, then I think they could possibly do something to persuade the Houthis in order to become, in order to keep gain over Yemen. Or, I mean, what do you think could possibly happen if the Houthis are an ally, do become a major ally of Iran? Do you think a war can possibly happen in Yemen as well?
Well, what you were saying before that you weren't sure if they were funded by Iran, they actually have been. I mean, there might be some ideological
No,
differences.
I know they're funded by Iran. I know they're
Okay.
funded by Iran, but I'm saying there are some ideological differences, which were brought up. I can show you the article, but I don't know how strongly aligned they are with Iran. Sure, they're funded by them, but I don't know if they're that strongly aligned with them to the fact that they won't be able to go over to the side of the U.S.
Yeah, I would say that the Iranians are going to try as hard as possible to keep them aligned to them, even if there are ideological differences, because Iran right now, it's not, I wouldn't say it's on like a major losing end, but it is probably on the losing end of the power struggle in the Middle East between Iran and the Saudis. The Saudis have a lot more allies in the Middle East than the Iranians do. Obviously, there's some connections between ISIS and the Saudis, which the Iranians are opposed to. The Saudis have their allies, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, major like oil-producing countries. So I think Iran is going to try to keep an alliance with them, but I don't know like how much the Houthis are going to really care about staying aligned to the Iranians now that they're actually in power. So that's my thought.
Okay, say if they do though, what do you think will be the response of America? Do you think there could be another possible war, maybe some airstrikes going on, a coalition with the Arabians, with the Saudis and the UAE and Oman to airstrike the Houthis? What do you think could possibly come out of that? Because that might actually cause a border war between Iran and Saudi Arabia, so they might not want that, you know?
Yeah, I think they try to keep like as far away from that kind of conflict as possible. They would try to be conciliatory about it, like towards the Iranians, because I don't think they want a military conflict with Iran. But they probably would do like some covert drone strikes targeting quote like supposed terrorists that would actually do damage against the government, uh, like covert funding, stuff like that. If it didn't turn into like a full out war against the Houthi government.
Well, I mean, I definitely think there's going to be some war to come in Yemen between the Houthis and the Islamists and al-Islah and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula have already started doing some things. They've already freed a few prisoners in Yemen after this. I think it was a couple of days ago after this coup d'état has happened. So I think there's going to be a power struggle between those two groups. And I mean, I guess the U.S. might let it play out. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I don't. Hopefully, the United States. Well, not hopefully, but I would think that the United States has learned from their mistakes at this point to not fund these crazy like organizations like Al Qaeda to do their dirty work when they're going to turn against them once they're powerful enough. So they might try to find like some other organization.
They haven't learned that lesson at all.
But
I can
yeah,
tell you that right now.
yeah, exactly. So that's the thing. They might, but at the same time, they're fighting ISIS right now, who like they're it's not part of Al Qaeda, and actually they're more extreme. They've been condemned by Al Qaeda, but they're dealing with like a problem of like their own accord right now with ISIS, and like if they're gonna do
Well,
the same thing with Al
I think
Qaeda,
they might go ahead.
yeah, it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they might aid the Sunni al-Islah because those guys aren't necessarily so anti-American. You know, that could be like their new Free Syrian army in the area. But at
Yeah,
this stage, I mean, I guess it's too early to tell.
yeah. Like I think they might fund radicals, but they're gonna try. I think it's hard, like as possible, to stay away from like the extreme radicals like Al Qaeda. But the problem is there's no purely pro-U.S. like moderates they could fund. They're gonna have to fund some radicals,
Yeah.
and they're gonna probably.
Okay, does anyone else want to say anything else on this coup d'etat in Yemen?
No.
Nope.
Jake, Patrick,
Well,
Patrick, whatever happened to Hayes?
I don't know.
You left him there.
I
So
think
you
I'll ask.
brought him in. You brought him in. You left, and then he left after you came back.
Yeah, basically. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the next topic then, and that is the war in Donbass, the eastern region of Ukraine. So the Russian separat. What the fuck is that? Can you like mute your mic? The Russian separatists
sorry.
and the Ukrainian government. Yeah, the Russian separatists and the Ukrainian government have came to an agreement for a peace deal, but there's still like shellings going on. There's still RPG firing. There's still shootings, and I guess they're gonna get as much of that out as possible until this peace agreement goes through.
What actually? The last I heard, the peace agreement was rejected by the separatists.
Really?
Yeah. Which I mean, the peace agreement,
Okay.
like the thing about it was that it wasn't like we can't assume that it was anything genuine because there's a large amount of evidence that it was just to make the coalition government in Ukraine look good, and they had plans to do offense anyway.
Yeah.
So against them, so it didn't matter. Like it was just like bullshit. Like wasn't anything serious.
Yeah, I mean that's what they did a couple of months ago when they like put that peace deal on board, and then they started like as soon as they did that, they started like shelling the hell out of Donetsk and Luhansk. But what are you guys' thoughts on this proxy war? Like this is clearly a proxy war of the two major imperialists factions, the imperialists of the East and the imperialists of the West. What are your thoughts on this? What position should we take as radical leftists? I think that personally, there's no party that we should take in this conflict. I think we should personally take a revolutionary defeatist position.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. In terms of like who are you going to support, the separatists or the coalition? Revolutionary defeatism is really the only because there are two imperialist powers that are trying to further, the hegemonic rule of capital. Like it's not something that should be supported by anybody. It's imperialism. So you should be against both parties. You should be looking for both of them to fail.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of people that support Donetsk and Luhansk. I've seen a lot of them, get so caught up in the populist titles that they're using.
Oh yeah,
such
yeah,
as
yeah.
being called the Revolutionary Soviets and being
the people's
and
whatever the fucking
People Soviets that are
using hammers and sickles in their imagery.
Shitting in the people's toilets, yeah.
Yeah, it's just Soviet nationalism. That's the only purpose it serves.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah, it's basically just.
Yeah,
it's basically just this like esoteric, like nostalgic, language that they're using. That's garnering all the support from people who consider themselves to be radical leftists.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of tanks that I feel that I think they think like they're going to establish another Soviet Union and defeat the Nazis or whatever. But it's bullshit. Like that's that's so stupid. Like they're not leftist forces. They're imperialist forces. They're aligning with imperialist forces. It'd be the same thing if it's the same thing as SYRIZA aligning with the far right party. Get off it.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, except SYRIZA's like decently like left wing, and these guys are just Tsarists,
Yeah.
Say what you're gonna say.
It's really sad
Patrick.
how the left can easily be fooled by just simple populist rhetoric.
Yeah.
Soviet nostalgia thrown into the mix really speaks to the volumes of how low we've gotten.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on the conflict in Donbass?
Nope.
Not really.
All right. So something that happened really recently, like yesterday, was the cop who killed a Brooklyn man, Kai Gurley, on November 20th of last year, has been indicted on involuntary manslaughter of the second degree. So, I mean, this is like the second time a cop has actually been indicted on killing somebody, like an unarmed black man, since Oscar Grant in 2009. So this is kind of this is pretty fucking big after all the non-indictments that we had last year. And also, yesterday, the director of the FBI came out and said that, yes, the police are racist. Like, it's undeniable. We have all the facts here right in front of you. But I thought that was kind of ironic that, you know, the director of a notoriously racist intelligence agency will come out and attack the police for their racism. So, I mean, you guys could talk about that.
Well, I mean, the thing, like, under COINTELPRO, obviously, there was a lot of racism, and the FBI, I mean, they were responsible for the murder of 2 significant black activists because they were black activists, you know, Huey, you know, and all that. So it's so that's bullshit. But like, I think like it's pretty interesting the fact that you know, I mean, these police killings keep increasing and rapidly. Like, we used to just see them increasing on maybe a yearly basis. Now we're seeing them increase on monthly basis, which is really, really alarming in my opinion. Like, I just keep hearing about more and more people getting killed by cops. And it's ridiculous. Like, this is. I mean, like, I heard last, like, some gay, male individual.
Oh my god.
Killed. Yeah.
That sounds so bad.
What?
You said some gay. Like the way you said. I know. You were stumbling on your words. I know. I know.
Yeah.
It sounded pretty bad at first.
So
Go
some
ahead, keep
gay. Some gay. Fucking gays. Anyway. Yeah. Fucking anyway, but like, so like, it just keeps getting worse, and I think, like, you know, of course the liberals are gonna call for, you know, oh, you know, we need to indict those cops, but you know, that's not gonna work because, I mean, the reason that they got off with, you know, Brown and Garner was because they were cops, so they could use their power to get each other off, you know, off the punishment. You know, they're the police. They have, you know, there's a structured hierarchy between them and the citizens. And so we have no real power. And they're just going to keep doing what they want to because they're drunk with power because of that structured hierarchy. So unless we break down the structured hierarchy, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, and I mean, you have the district attorneys that protect the cops. You know, the cops protect the district attorneys. It's kind of like I pat your back, you pat mine kind of thing going on. Like the judicial system in America is extremely corrupt to the point where, you know, of course, there's no reforming anything of the bourgeois legislator, but the judicial system is something that's so corrupt beyond belief that even a notion that we can somehow reform it is nonsensical, and really it supports the idea in itself. I mean, it's reasserting this idea that we can have a free and fair judicial system in a capitalist society.
I mean,
well,
honestly,
the judicial system in the U.S., like, many, like, decisions regarding law are made, like, in backdoor, like, you know, arrangements. Like, it's actually really sleazy. So, you know, I mean, there's no free and openness at all.
I think the only solution to this plague of police brutality is armed militias. We need to start organizing armed militias in order to watch the streets and watch the cops specifically. Because you know, there's the La Pompe bourgeoisie that we need to watch, and then there's the cops who are just complete assholes. So you got 2 enemies to deal with, and sort of the urban environment and dealing the urban environment. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's actually something good to bring up, because when you have, like, those armed militias and they're done well, it's actually very successful, because, you know, when you start shooting back at the cops, you know, the hierarchy begins to break down, and that's what gives them their power. So, for instance, the Black Rider Liberation Front that took after the Black Panthers, when they did, you know, the stuff of, you know, and they weren't very heavily armed. They didn't even, most of the time they didn't even have guns. They had, like, bats and stuff. But even that was pretty effective because they were breaking down the hierarchy.
Yeah, the only risk with militias in that is them breaking down and just being gangs. That's the risk.
That's obvious. That is obviously a problem.
Like, when you need funding, they just start selling drugs, and eventually it devolves into a gang.
The shining path. The shining path. Yeah.
Shining path. Narco communism.
Yeah, narco.
Okay, so
Marxism, narcoism.
all right, so anything else on the rampant police brutality, the Akai Gurley case? I mean, I think it is pretty like amazing, even still that this cop got indicted. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's
yeah.
I think that is pretty amazing.
Let's give him
That's
this.
a big step, I think. And I think that was done because, of there's been a lot of mass action against these things, and people have been attacking companies. They've been organizing, and that shows the power. Like, the only reason that happened, I guarantee you, was because, people have been getting pissed. So I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
Okay, so I guess that's it. I mean, I guess we could do a little freestyle. We could talk about things that aren't necessarily political or cultural. We could talk about some like movies or some shit like that. But if you guys don't want to do that, then we could end this call now, and that would be the first episode.
Did we talk about
Leftist Weekly?
Did we talk about the American Sniper at all?
No, we haven't.
That's right. I can tell you guys about it. Have you listened to it?
Do we want to save that till next time, or?
No, we can just talk about it.
Well, no, I mean, we can just talk about it now.
Yeah, it'll be less relevant by then. It
Alright.
actually came out quite a long time ago at this point, but yeah, like the movie. I mean, like obviously, like a lot. I kind of like action movies and stuff like that, like people fighting each other and guns and stuff. But yeah, the movie really just serves to romanticize Chris Kyle. Sort of like gives you kind of a distorted view on his life. So yeah, it's kind of propaganda, but I don't necessarily think that like it was intended to serve that purpose.
I
but
think
it does.
I mean, it's blatant war.
Really?
To me, it's blatant war propaganda. Like, if you,
I disagree.
like the movie, like it's blatantly structured to, perpetuate, the myth that Chris Kyle was essentially trying to perpetuate in his book. And he wasn't. He didn't think that it was for the imperial interest of the U.S. Obviously, he was a racist. He didn't like Arabs, and he was caught up in the propaganda. But the movie itself, it follows, his book, and his book was essentially him doing the war propaganda for the United States. I mean, he didn't know he was doing that. He was doing it subconsciously. He was, regurgitating what had been shoved down his throat by the media, and so I mean, he's a blatantly racist person. He doesn't like Arabs. That's what you get from reading his shit. And the movie's structured after his shit, and they structured it that way on purpose. It's like it's pretty obvious.
The thing with the movie is it's slightly different on his portrayal. Like, he was more sympathetic. Like, he had family issues.
That's what I was gonna say.
He wasn't completely
him.
sociopathic like he is in his original book, which is pretty funny.
I mean,
but
in the movie, they take him
and
the American soldiers and they glorify them into these like paragons of virtue, is like gods essentially. And then when they do to Arab people, even like children, they made the Arab population, even the children, look like these
savages.
Freaking Antichrist walking the earth or something,
Oh yeah.
I mean, they totally like normify this idea that American soldiers are these great heroes, these deities, and the Arabs, the enemy, they're savages. That's what they repeatedly call them in the movie: savages, savages, savages.
Yeah.
And it really like got that in all of these people's minds, like this jingoistic worldview.
When they came out of the movie, like with Red Dawn, when people came out of Red Dawn, it was like, oh, I want to kill some fucking Koreans. Now people are tweeting like, oh, I want to kill some ragheads and shit, using blatantly racist dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it necessarily encouraged people like to go to war, but I think what it did was it like legitimized like the purpose of it. So yeah, I guess it's like propaganda in that sense. It's not telling you like, oh, Arabs are invading you.
It's not
like that. Like Red Dawn is like, oh, we're being invaded. Our values are being invaded by communists or like ragheads or whatever. We have to go.
Well, but it's to justify the
It's to exactly.
Invasion.
And one of the other things I
at
noticed
the same time,
is that when like the white guys, they weren't necessarily white, but when the American soldiers would shoot people, they would act very sympathetic, very like, oh, I'm not sure about doing this. But then when the Arab snipers would kill people, it was like they had these like evil looks on their faces like, oh yeah, they liked doing this. They're, you know, brown people. They like killing people. So this is a little.
Yeah, and I mean, and I mean, it was the exact opposite too. Like Chris Kyle was the one that talked about these like orgasmic feelings that he had when he shot people in the head. I mean, he doesn't even talk. He doesn't even talk about all the people that he killed that were completely innocent, just like random bystanders that he just liked to shoot.
Yeah.
I mean, it completely deifies the soldiers. It completely deifies the military complex, and it demonizes these people that are supposed to be our enemies. It makes them, you know, the savages that they claim they are throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And
also for the film, they had to make up a villain. They literally made up a villain.
Oh yeah, and he was the Arab sniper. He was essentially their Chris Kyle. Although he wasn't portrayed as sympathetic, but he literally was the Arab Chris Kyle.
He was more Cobra Commander.
Yeah, no, but yeah, but listen to this though. Like that guy, he's kind of based on a true story, but he wasn't a Sunni. Like he wasn't fighting against the Americans. He was actually a Shia that was on the side of the Americans. So they basically took this like this dastardly guy who was pretty like a pretty fucked up version. I guess he was the Iraqi version of Chris Kyle. Like he was a pretty fucked up individual as well. But he was actually on the side of America.
He was the sadistic frickin' sniper who killed people.
You see, the funny thing with this film is that what's his name? I forget. Clint Eastwood is claiming that this is an anti-war film. Like, I kind of like that he's doing this because it pisses off all the right-wing wingnuts who basically supported this film as patriotic propaganda, which I just, you know, I'll give Clint Eastwood props for that, but it doesn't come off as an anti-war film.
But have you heard his reasoning for the reason why it's anti-war? He said it's anti-war because like we don't want to send our guys over there to have to deal with those savages. That's literally what he said.
What's the guy's name that played?
And that does not serve an anti-war.
What's the guy's name that played Kyle in the movie?
I can't think of it right now.
Well,
he's a pretty famous actor.
But
it's Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper.
Oh, you know the guy who made the movie?
Bradley Cooper. I remember getting so pissed off at him when I saw the interview about it because he was like, "Oh, I could feel the heroic presence of Chris Kyle, and I could feel him watching down at me from like heaven, fucking being proud of me." And I was like, I wanted to punch him in the face. Like I was pissed off at like he's just like, fuck you, like.
I mean, this movie, it's like that other movie. What was the movie about killing Osama bin Laden? What was that about again?
Zero Dark 30.
SEAL Team 6? Zero Dark 30. Yeah, I mean, it's so historically incorrect to boot. Like, not only is it just, like, serving this jingoistic purpose of, like, riling up all of these people who hate Arabs, but at the same time, it's, like, not even remotely accurate at all. So that's another thing that, like, really annoys me. But, yeah, so the guy that actually killed Chris Kyle, he's on trial now for the murder of Chris Kyle. He is schizophrenic, but they still want to like lock his ass up for killing their great hero, their great Lord and Savior, Chris Kyle. Even though he's a mentally handicapped person, but you know, whatever. You don't kill Chris Kyle and get away with it.
Yeah, of course not. It's America.
Nobody knows the American camper.
If you're mentally ill, you don't get jailed unless if you kill one of our sadistic war heroes.
Yeah. I mean, he hacked. Exactly. He was a hacker.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you know, you kill an innocent black man about 50 times, you know, and you get nothing.
Black people are spooky.
Oh, yeah. All right, so, I mean, I guess that concludes the first episode of Leftist Weekly. I mean, I guess it was a little sloppy, but I thought we did a pretty good job. So, give yourself a round of applause, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Clap.
All right.
All right, so hopefully next week we'll have it just a little bit better. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah.
Yep.